real quick. I think so.
Not yet? you're going to be amazing.
I'm sorry.
What YouTube?
What? On YouTube,
Good evening. Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for joining us. Are we ready to start? Okay, welcome. Welcome to Or Chaim. All of those of you, especially to grade 9 Olpana parents who may not have been here ever or recently, welcome. Those of you who are interested for the first time ever for the speech contest, we are live streaming the speech contest. It was sort of a last-minute decision, which is why we haven't emailed out the link. But we're going to send it around to all of your parents now. And this way, if you want, you could send it to your grandparents or your uncles or your aunts. You could forward it to them, and they have the opportunity to watch you speaking while you're speaking right here. How incredibly exciting. So I wanted to just share one thought as we were beginning, sort of getting ready for Pesach and getting in the mood before our speakers. If you think about a leader, and certainly you look at what defines leadership today, in the context of what makes someone a leader, an incredible individual who has that ability, that unique charisma to find a way to bring people together, bring them towards a cause, inspire them, motivate them. One of perhaps the quintessential character traits that's necessary for a leader is the ability to be a great speaker. No? Think of great leadership individuals in the world. Think of great speeches. You could Google top speeches of all time, and without a doubt, it's a person's ability to project, a person's ability to speak, perhaps to win a speech contest. But yet, when we look at our great leader, who this Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we really usher in the Pesach season, Moshe is described to us as being of Chavad Peh u'Chavad Lashon. Right away, his first excuse when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as to why he can't lead and why he shouldn't lead is that he has a speech impediment and he has this difficulty projecting. And of course, God, Kadosh Baruch Hu, calms him down and says, don't worry about it. You have a partner. Aaron, a Cohen, will be there. Aaron perhaps is a better speaker. You don't need to worry about it. Don't be concerned. But isn't it fascinating on some level when you think about that contrast? When we live in a world in which charismatic figures are popular because of their speaking abilities, and the Jewish model of leadership, the greatest leader that the Jewish people have ever known, was perhaps a very, very challenged public speaker. And while I wish all of our contestants good luck today, and I hope they all will win, and I'll be in and out. I actually, due to a scheduling conflict, I have a board meeting going on upstairs around the same time. It doesn't start yet, so I have some time to hang out here. But I'll have to go upstairs once that starts, and then I'll try to come back down and catch different points. But it's being YouTubed, so I can always watch it later on. But it's fascinating to think about the fact that despite the emphasis on being a great speaker and the important qualities that it involves and how important and vital it is for life, when it comes to a Jewish model of leadership, almost despite modern sensibilities, we're introduced to Moshe, who is challenged from a speaking perspective. And in fact, the Jewish people have to be attached to him, not because of his charismatic abilities to convey ideas in a complex, eloquent way, but rather based on other characteristics. And I think that in the context of a speech contest, which we, of course, give incredible importance to, and I want you to know that all of our contestants have worked very hard. They've all practiced many times, some of them perhaps in front of a mirror, others in front of parents or other relatives. It's important to remember that there are lots of characteristics that are involved in leadership, speaking, of course, one of them, but certainly other aspects as well, which are vital. This is really a program that a number of people get a lot of credit for, but chief among them is Mrs. Fixler, who works very, very hard on this every year. A ton of work goes into it, really by the entire English department in both schools. I don't want to miss people, but Mrs. Kagan and Mr. Parker and Mr. Saltzman and Mrs. Thompson and Dr. Nadler and Mr. Lazar. No, you're not really in this one? No? Oh, okay, fine. You used to teach English. So, and perhaps others who I may have forgotten, but really a ton of work, and specifically by all of our students. It's a favorite program that we run, and I really want to thank all of you, our parents, for coming, for joining, for being here. Mrs. Fixler is going to thank our judges for the incredible job that they're going to do, and really, a chag kosher v'sameach to everybody here. If I don't see you individually, I wish you all a wonderful Pesach. Thank you. Mrs. Fixler.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'll as well just project. Students, you can use it. You don't have to. It's your choice. Thank you so much, Rabbi Grauer. Much appreciated. Many thanks to all of you for coming. Thank you so much for this support. Rabbi Grauer, Mr. Rapp, who's joining us shortly, all the fellow administrators and English teachers for giving up so much of their class time. All of our students in both schools who had no choice but to participate in this contest, right? We told you you have to, but it's for a good cause. And of course, to all of our finalists who are sitting here, who soon I will let you have a chance to speak. I wanted to also introduce our esteemed judging panel that we have over here. We're very proud of this grouping. We call them our dream team. We have Mr. Avraham Kanofsky. We can applaud. Thank you very much. 2014 alumni, and also one of the top 3 finalists of that year in the speech contest. So welcome, and a current teacher in our school as well. That's right. We have Ms. Sarah Wapner. Thank you. And Ms. Wapner was the winner of her speech contest in 2014, graduate of 2014, and in her second year as a faculty member at Bnei Akiva Schools. Welcome. We have Mrs. Hadassah Rubenstein-Pertman. We can applaud. I need a sign. And Mrs. Pertman, as well, is a graduate of the school. We won't tell you her year, but it wasn't that long ago. It's recent. Also a beloved teacher on our staff from a few years past, a board member, and just a very wonderful speech enthusiast. So we are very happy to have her. And of course, the incomparable Mr. T. Basically an institution in our school and a founding judge on this panel. We're very grateful to have all of you. We thank you so much for coming and joining us. I want to also just mention that you all here are going to be part of judging as well. After our 9s and 10s present, we're going to open up a bit of a texting component for those of you who aren't familiar with our process. We have what we call the People's Choice Awards for a finalist from the 9 and 10 category, and then a finalist from the 11 and 12 category. So just our order of events for the evening, we are going to have our 9s and 10s speak. We're going to put up on the screen the number that you can text, 1 vote per person, for your favorite 9 and 10 finalist. And then we'll have a short intermission. We have a few cookies out there. And then, someone's happy about the cookies. That's great. And then we have our 11s and 12s presenting. We will have then the 11 and 12 numbers up on the screen for you to vote for your people's choice from 11 and 12. And we'll give our judges some time to deliberate, and they'll come up with their top 3. So all of your input is very valued, and we appreciate it. I want to just take one moment to say this is our 13th year of this speech contest. We're really proud of that. And I used a calculator for this math because I teach English, but that's over 200, over 200 finalists who've stood here, presented their speeches over the years. And it's a great feeling for all of us as teachers to think about how much confidence and how much self-esteem students gain from standing here, from feeling that power of saying, hey, wow, I have a whole captive audience. I can choose my speech topic, which we're very proud of. We don't force anyone. The topics you hear are the topics that students themselves chose. And we think that especially now in 2019, when so many of us have our faces down on our phones or devices, it's so valuable to have that ability to stand and present and to learn that skill. So we thank you all for coming. We thank you all for supporting all of our finalists. And without further ado, Tippy Price, come on up.
Everyone think about the following question. Have you ever compared yourself to a sibling, a peer, or a close friend? If you have, how did that make you feel? Did it make you feel bad about yourself? Did it put you down? Did it make you feel unworthy, weak, or dumb? Have you ever felt not good enough compared to someone else? Most people in this room at one point in their life has probably compared themselves to another. But I can't speak for you, so I won't. But I can speak for myself, and I can tell you right now that I have. When you compare yourselves to others, it overall puts you down. You will end up lowering your self-esteem and thinking bad about yourself. Everyone in this world has a purpose, and when you try to be like others, you're serving their purpose and not your own. You don't always see what goes on in someone else's life. They can be going through health, family, school, or personal issues, and you're comparing yourself to them based on their friends, looks, or even a mark on a test. I know that just saying, don't compare yourselves to others, isn't really going to help. You need to put in the action for the words to come true. Instead of comparing yourself, take a step back. Think about what you do have, what you're good at, your talents, and your potential. Let me give an example. Michael Phelps is an Olympian swimmer. He struggled with self-love, depression, and it even got to the point of not wanting to live anymore. It took time and devotion, but he took what he is good at, focusing on himself without comparing himself on others, and became an Olympian swimmer with 28 medals and holds the record for earning the most gold medals in the history of the Olympics. When you focus on yourself and what you want in life, you will get far, and Michael Phelps is our proof. I'll conclude with a story. There was once a rabbi named Rav Zusha. Rav Zusha was a very well-respected and honored rabbi, blessed with tons of students. He was also blessed with an older brother. Him and his brother were similar in some ways, but had many differences. His brother was known as the more brilliant brother. One day, people that were aware of Rav Zusha's brother and his intelligence asked him the following: what are you going to say to God after 120 years on this planet when he asks you? Why weren't you as good as your brother? You grew up the same way. You grew up in the same home. Why were you not as accomplished? Rav Zusha answers powerfully by saying, do you think I'm worried for God to ask me why I wasn't as good as Avraham Avinu or Moshe Rabbeinu? No, that's ridiculous. So why should I be worried for him to ask me why I wasn't as good as my brother? I'm not him. He continues to say, but there is one thing that I am worried about that God will ask me. He will say, Zusha, why were you not you? Why were you not Zusha? Why did you not use your talents and your abilities to the fullest? And this is what I will not be able to answer. From this story we learn that God made us all different and unique, and he did this for a reason. He doesn't want us to all be the same and try to live up to others' goals and strive to achieve others' accomplishments. We shouldn't compare ourselves to others because we are who we are. That's how God wants it to be, so that's how it should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiffy. I am now pleased to call up Hannah Halberstadt.
Jay-Z, Elvis Presley, Albert Einstein, Jim Carrey, and Oprah Winfrey. When you hear these names, do you think of successful, amazing, brilliant, and talented? Or do you think of failure, poor, struggle, and average? Well, the average person would pick the first opinion. But let me let you in on a little secret. All these people, they match the second description of failing, poor, struggle, and average. Now they are famous and rich, and everyone knows their names and loves them. But have you ever wondered what came before? And answer with, oh, they were always told they were talented, or they were always rich, or they were recognized right away. Well, if you did, I'm sorry to say, but unfortunately, you're incorrect. According to WanderlustWorker.com, Jay-Z, famous singer, grew up in extreme poverty and wasn't signed by anyone, so he had to start his own record company. He was then falsely charged with stabbing someone at a record party and faced 3 years of probation. Elvis Presley, one of the most legendary singers of all time, at age 13, had extreme poverty and couldn't even afford a one-room apartment. He was told he couldn't sing and failed to sell his recorded songs 3 times and ultimately became a truck driver. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest geniuses of all time, was considered a failure because he couldn't speak till age 4. He then failed an examination to get into a school and later almost dropped out of university. Jim Carrey, highly famous actor, had to drop out of school at 15 to become a janitor to make just enough money to live. Oprah Winfrey, huge businesswoman and talk show host, had rough living conditions with her teenage mother and was later sexually abused at age 9 by her cousin, uncle, and family friend. She was pregnant at 14, and her son passed away shortly after. These are just a few examples of people who prove to us by being who they have become that failure is the first step to success. People aren't the only things that have failed to become successes. Ever heard of bubble wrap? According to Forbes.com, bubble wrap was originally designed to be a trendy new wallpaper. But when it was used to package a computer, it was an overnight sensation. So far, if you were all hopefully listening, you know that failure leads to success. So how do you succeed? Do you know what a ticophobia is? It means fear of failing. So how can you overcome this completely common and normal fear? 1, realize that failing is the first step to success. 2, when you fail, don't let it get you down. Get right back up and fight for what you want. 3, when you are ready to get yourself back together, get ready because you're in for a wild ride. 4, look at the things you learned from failing and use it to your advantage. And 5, move on. You've got this. It's true that 50% of people fail, but that means that the other 50% succeed. How are you going to look at it? Is that glass half empty or half full? It's up to you to decide. I believe that every single one of you can do great things. Just believe and don't be scared to fail, because remember, failure is the first step to success. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I'm now pleased to call Jacob Brott.
Is there any way I can get rid of this? It's a little too short.
I'm going to begin by asking all of you a simple question. Can any of you remember the last time you had to make a choice? A difficult decision. That sapped your energy and stressed you out? You can't think of one off the top of your head? I'll provide an example. When faced with the choice of what to speak about today, I was stumped. In fact, I was so stumped that my indecision actually gave me indecision, why it matters, and how to solve it. We as humans have a tendency to spend too much of our time on minutia, and decision making can sometimes feel like a matter of life or death. Although this may be the case when deciding to jump out of an airplane, for instance, it is not so when dealing with the finer details of everyday life. For example, is choosing today's outfit really worth 10 minutes one's morning? Of course not. Some people seem to think it is. And this is a problem because if we use unnecessary amounts of attention and effort on things like picking clothes for school or work, we can soon find ourselves suffering from something called decision fatigue. In psychology, decision fatigue refers to the deteriorating quality of one's decisions due to a long period of tiresome decision making. In other words, when we get overwhelmed by unimportant choices, we simply run out of focus and brain power to properly make the important ones. This phenomenon is also the reason why shopping trips can be so exhausting for some. How then do we deal with this issue? It's actually very easy to do so, and there are many methods you can decide on. Whatever. For example, President Barack Obama only ever wore gray or blue suits. Albert Einstein, he wore the same thing every day. He never changed his outfit. Other easily accessible online tips include planning daily decisions the night beforehand and doing your most important errands or tasks first. People like American psychologist Barry Schwartz have even started thinking about the future on a grand scale. In his book, The Paradox of Choice, Schwartz hypothesizes that reducing options for consumers of any product can greatly reduce their anxiety. So there we have it, folks. I've identified the problem and given you guys a solution, but you may still be asking yourself, why should I care? Why do my decisions matter? I'll tell you why. Your life story is like a book. You are the hands that hold the pen. Your decisions are the ink in which you write the words of your life. There's a reason that God created us with the freedom to choose. Our choices, the decisions we make, are bound to be the single most impactful, life-changing moments of our lives. Decisions matter. In the moment, most of us don't realize the magnitude of the choices we make. But I promise you, what you choose to do at the crossroads of your life will stay with you throughout its final chapters. So listen up. Don't be a yet man. Focus on the big picture. And when those decisions arise, the decisions that paint your big picture, do me a favor. Don't mess it up.
Pleased to call Boaz Katzman.
I think it'll get too short for me. According to all known laws of aviation, there's no way that a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyways, because bees don't care what humans think is possible. 1 in 35 high school basketball players go on to play at a college level, 2.9%. 1 in 75 of these players will be drafted by an NBA team, 1.3%. Combining these two, about 3 in 10,000 high school basketball players are eventually drafted by an NBA team, 0.03%. And for a woman drafted to the WNBA, 0.02. When a bee gets its fat body off the ground, it completely disregards what the odds or laws suggest that it should be doing. Why? Because these are just statistics, and it's up to every single one of you to decide if these statistics will define you or if you will define them. Every single person was put on this earth for a reason, to fulfill a purpose. For a bee, that purpose is pollinating plants, which maintain many of our food crops. Their honey is a bonus. Without being an outlier to statistics, a bee would never be able to fly, and as a result, many of our crops would not be able to thrive, and we probably wouldn't be here today. If you want to make a difference in this world, then you too had to defy the odds and be an outlier. The dictionary defines defying the odds as succeeding in a task where most people assumed you would fail. Most people. Most. Why not all? Because saying all implies that even you thought that you would not succeed. Be like the bee. Push the boundaries and find your purpose. And you could tell anyone who doesn't believe in you to buzz off. You could turn that statistic into a meaningless number, all by believing in yourself and knowing that you're capable of going beyond the limitations. 0.03%, 3 in 10,000 people. These 3 people chose to push statistics aside, work their behinds off, and become an inspiration to the next generation. Just think, bees push their boundaries, and as a result, we maintain our crops and get honey as a bonus. Now just imagine what would happen if we all pushed our boundaries. What could our bonus be? Let's exceed the expectations set out for us. Let's defy the odds. Let's be great. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Thank you very much, Boaz. I'm pleased to call up Adina Strauss.
Abraham Lincoln, Princess Diana, Bill Gates, Martin Luther King Jr. What do all of these famous people have in common? They are all middle children. For the first 2.5 years of my life, I was the spoiled baby sister of my 2 older siblings. I got away with everything, and I had all the attention from my parents. On June 30th, 2005, all of that changed. My little brother and sister were born. I was very excited to have 2 more siblings. Little did I know I would have an unfortunate future from that day on. I had just become a middle child. So what is being a middle child like? There are so many stereotypes about middle children. Some examples are that they get blamed for everything, feel neglected, or left out. These are all very true. Have any of you ever gotten lost in a grocery store or at a park when you were little? Did you feel forgotten or feel that nobody in your family even cares enough about you to keep you with them? I feel like this a lot. You can compare my family to a traffic light. The oldest are red lights because everybody respects them. The youngest are green lights because everybody loves them. And I, the middle, I'm a yellow light because no one ever listens to me. Even though it sucks to be forgotten about, sometimes I would rather be forgotten than get in trouble for something I didn't do. When I was younger and me and one of my siblings were fighting, my parents would send me to my room right away and let my sibling do whatever they want. Just last week, my dad said, "Could I ask who left this Starbucks thing on my desk?" It was probably Adina. It's always Adina. This is a true story, I promise, and for the record, no, it was not me. But being a middle child can come with its advantages as well. For example, when my older siblings are going somewhere, and my younger siblings are going somewhere else, I get to choose where I want to go. If you're bad at making decisions, this could also be a disadvantage, but thankfully I don't struggle with that. Another good thing about being in the middle is that I'm the older sibling and the younger sibling at the same time. If I'm going somewhere or doing something for the first time, but my older sisters have been there before, I feel more comfortable with them there and they help me get used to the situation. It's also good to be the older sibling because my younger siblings do whatever I ask. When I'm eating dinner, I can say, "Max, give me orange juice, please," and he does it right away. He usually says something like, "You know, you could get up too," but he still gets it, and that's what matters. As you can see, there are good and bad parts about being the middle child. Overall, I would not change anything about my family. I love all of my siblings very much, even though they can make me crazy sometimes. So if any of you are middle children, it is understandable if you feel forgotten or left out, but also appreciate that you get the best of both worlds.
Thank you very much, Adina. I'm pleased to call up Liebe Woodrow.
Hey guys. According to Google, perfect is having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics, as good as it is possible to be. Yes, that means however upsetting or surprising it may be, you and I are not perfect. From a young age, watching TV shows and reading books have led us to believe that perfect is the ideal and what we should strive to be. We're always pursuing and forcing ourselves to be perfect in order to be the favorite child or the most popular girl in school. This sets our lives on a path which is unattainable. I am still a child, but having taken a step back in my life, I can really see that I am not perfect. I have many flaws like my small eyes, ears, and annoyingly egotistic personality, not to mention my strive to be perfect. I could literally go on for hours about what I don't like about myself. Sad, right? Now take a moment and step back. Think of all your imperfections. Then stop and think about what you love about yourself. To be honest, anyone here who understands what being self-conscious is can say that the imperfections outweigh the perfections. Think about this. The perfect person does not exist only because the concept of perfection is not real. We can attain things like a grade or a job, but the idea of being perfect in life is just unrealistic. We will always want more and what we don't have. Take Mr. Harry Styles for an example. Everyone believes that man is perfect. Well, at least I do. But really, if you ask Mr. Styles, I highly doubt he would even say he's close to perfect or lives a perfect life. He would probably tell you he dislikes many things about himself. Going back to how Google defined perfect as having all the required elements. Can we really have all the requirements as people? How is that possible if we're all made new, clean, and original? If we all had the requirements, we'd be the exact same gorgeous person. Anywhere you'd look, you'd see a handsome Harry Styles. I know I would want to live in that world, but is it really real? Perfection we pursue and pursue. The biggest mistake we make is not wanting to make a mistake. Perfection may be motivating for some, but for others, it allows them to think of themselves as a failure if they have not reached that perfection. It stops you from stepping out of your comfort zone and living your life. It's a game of your ego, which if you play, will keep you stuck. Progress is always better than perfection. Mistakes don't hurt. Pressure hurts. We're all doing our very best, and that's all we can truly do. Humans were not intended to be perfect, and that's part of the definition of being human. We need to remind ourselves that the goal isn't to emulate a machine, rather to embrace the imperfection of being human. In our lives, we move toward a greater emphasis on achievement and goals. When we do so, we seem to lose a potential celebration and positivity of the situation. Imagine looking at a rainbow and complaining that one of the colors weren't perfect. Not only would that be absurd, but you would also be ruining the brilliance of the moment. And yet, that's exactly what we do when we judge ourselves for our imperfections. We forget that as humans, we are a part of nature as well. Therefore, we would benefit if we came to acceptance of the natural state of life, which happens to be imperfect. Now, all of you do me a favor and don't only treat other people with kindness, but be kind to yourself as well.
Thank you very much, Liebe. I'm pleased to call up Eliezer Lando.
How would you react if I told you that there's a country that has more people without health care than the whole population of Canada? The country I'm referring to borders us to the south, the United States of America. 62 million, or 20% of Americans, do not have a way to pay for health care. As a comparison, in our province, Ontario, only 10% of citizens do not have a primary health care provider. But that is mainly because of the availability of doctors where people live versus the person's ability to pay. The main reason there's such a stark contrast regarding the number of people who see primary healthcare professionals between Ontario and America is because in Ontario we have a universal healthcare system, while in America this does not exist. Although for the impoverished, veterans of the military, and seniors, there are universal systems like we have here. Here are a few reasons why the Ontario healthcare system is far better than that of America's. First, healthcare in Ontario is completely free because it's paid through OHIP, while in America it is generally paid through by private insurance companies through people's employers. If someone's job doesn't provide these costs, the cost can be prohibitive and prevent many people from going to the hospital even if they are in dire need of a doctor. Here are a few examples of how prohibitive those costs can be. An average heart bypass can cost upwards of $75,000. An appendectomy can cost $13,000. Giving birth can cost $15,000. An MRI can cost $2,500. And a night in the hospital bed can cost $5,000. These are some examples of how the outrageous cost of healthcare in America can put people into debt. Another reason our healthcare system is far better than that of America's is that here everyone has access to the same medical professionals for free, whether they earn a salary of $30,000, $100,000, or $500,000 a year. The free healthcare system in Ontario is clearly working because we have a longer lifespan in Ontario than in America by 4 years. We also have lower mortality rates in virtually every category, including lower infant mortality, mental health mortality, and premature mortality rate. Although the Ontario healthcare system is good, there's definitely room for improvement. One big problem with the Ontario healthcare system is that it does not provide coverage for some therapy, glasses, dentistry, and prescription drugs for most. Another issue is that there's a shortage of hospital beds and emergency room doctors in Ontario due to a lack of funding. I'm sure we all know people who have been stuck waiting in the emergency room for endless hours or have been stuck waiting for a hospital bed in their necessary ward for a few days. Despite the flaws in the system, we as Canadians still must appreciate the person who introduced the concept of free healthcare to Canada. In the 60s, NDP Premier Tommy Douglas of Saskatchewan did this. Eventually, free healthcare spread across Canada because of him. Many people have a belief that democratic socialist ideas like universal healthcare are destined to fail. We know this is not true because every major industrialized country, except the United States of America, has a universal system. Although there's certainly room for improvement, we still must not take for granted the fact that we live in a country where universal healthcare is our priority. This way, this gives everyone the peace of mind that if they or one of their family members requires medical attention, whether it is cancer treatment or heart surgery, they can focus on the road to recovery and not have to worry about where the funds are going to come from for their medical care.
Thank you very much, Eliezer. Now pleased to call Mordechai Wolfson.
Why is it that when you give of yourself to others, you feel better? What is the motivating factor to put your desires aside and help those in need? How is it that by doing chesed, not only are we creating a better community, but bettering ourselves as well? It's in our nature to look out for ourselves before looking out for other people. When something is enjoyable, we automatically get pulled towards it. But making others happy? That seems like a foreign concept. When other people smile because of you, it's an incredible feeling. Knowing that because of you, their day was made, or because of you, a spark of joy was ignited within them, gives us such a wave of happiness. It gives us the satisfaction of giving. About a month ago, Charlie Harari gave a speech at a local shul. One of the points he strongly emphasized was happiness does not come from the outside world, rather from within. It comes from giving of yourself. It comes from sacrifice. Mr. Harari is saying that happiness is not found externally, rather internally. It's found from giving of yourself. When I got this watch, I got really excited, but the ecstasy was only short-lived. After a while, the novelty wore off, and it became boring. In the end, it is just a watch. On the flip side, when I give of myself to others, it leaves a lasting impact on me. I distinctly remember last year, I was at the park playing basketball with some friends. A big group of people came, and I recognized them as Yachad. I knew one of the members and asked if he wanted to play a little. The smile on his face when we were playing was incredible. It was not just a smile of joy, but of pure happiness. That moment made my day, my week even. And whenever I think back to it, it brings a smile to my face. This is a memory that will likely last with me for my entire life. This is timeless. We have to realize the positive impact we can have on people by the simple act of giving. When we give to people, we learn empathy, understanding, and most of all, happiness. The difference between the selfless happiness of giving and the selfish happiness of getting is clear. Selfless happiness is true and lasting. True happiness is a beautiful thing. And when we give to others, we are giving ourselves that gift. Real happiness. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Mordechai, once again. Okay, a round of applause really for all of our 9 and 10 finalists. Thank you so much, all of you. Okay, so this is what I was telling you about before. This is your opportunity. Right before we have an intermission, feel free to look at the numbers up here on the screen. These are all of our 9 and 10 finalists. The code that you put in, as if it's the number that you're texting, is 37607, and then in the message, you can vote for your favorite finalist from our 9s and 10s, and we're going to have that voting open for the rest of the evening. We're going to break for a short intermission. We have some light refreshments in the hall, and then we're going to come back in about 12 minutes' time to continue with our 11 and 12 finalists. Thank you.
Can you come with me? Liebe was very good.
Liebe, you were great.
Jacob. Good job. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you. one in our group that's sure except for you or Mark. No, whatever. I'll help him. It's really us four.
I need to find both. Oh my god.
No,
I'll make a deal. I'll cut you a deal real quick. Vote for whoever's better. Fair deal? I say yeah. Fair deal?
No, but honestly, I wasn't going to vote for one more. It's very sad. Like, us.
Yeah, I won't tell you. I won't tell you by vote.
We got a lot of English. No one's here. I know, but no one else is here.
I need to go to the
I don't know what is firefighter.
So sad.
I know, listen, me and Mark said are the only non-speaking seniors. Ever. It's all good. Oh, first grade 9s are done, and there's like, oh wait, grade 10s, like no, now grade 9s. I want some water. Looking like I snack like. I want some water.
I think the actually overall because all the girls started the same. No, I don't think both.
guys.
Leora.
Hey, hi. It's so big! Look how big it is! It's gonna be amazing! I'm really scared of blowing people's ears off, so I'm gonna like move as far away as possible from this. I'm gonna move far away from this. I will, okay, it's a secret. First of all, I'm already flexing on Orpheon with this sick-ass jacket. I love this jacket so much. I'm so scared to wear it though, because I always am worried of staining it because it's a white denim. I love you, I want to win. Let me win. Okay.
Test.
I'm making sure it's working, leave me alone. Someone record it for me. Someone record it. Someone record it. Yeah, I talk loud and I scream and I'm worried about blowing people's ears off. Okay. Yeah, I know. It's not inappropriate, don't worry. Shame, I wish it's not inappropriate. It's just first and last. Warning me? I don't know who's warning me. Okay. Sorry, did you guys know how embarrass myself? Yeah. My face is really flushing now. It is. This moment of my dreams. I'm gonna turn off the lights to make this worse. And also no one can see my face. Wait, does the guy know? Hello. Wait.
She is a legend.
Wait, you got this? Malka Finkelstein.
She's such a legend.
And Leora Cronenberg. How was it passed, by the way, that you refused to? You got this. Oh, she is. Oof. I don't remember.
Maybe she's standing on the side. It's not gonna bother. Like
She wants to turn off the lights so that they can see better. No problem. Just for one spot.
yeah, it's fine.
Okay, we're just gonna call
Whatever you want.
everyone.
This arrow, whatever you want.
Yeah, I just need arrow.
Do you want to move it so that you have room for your speech?
I mean, I can always just put it over like this because I need to be able to change my papers.
So it doesn't fall.
Don't worry. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'd like to continue. Welcome you back. I'm just gonna introduce you maybe. Okay. You can stay right here. This is where we need more Hosea because she has a really good whistle that she like whistle sound.
You want to
Get the light after you.
Yeah, is that?
Do you want me to do it right now? And then we'll see you as well.
I don't know because I can't see the screen. Oh, nice. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back. We're going to begin with our 11s and 12s. Just for this next presentation, our presenter, Malka Finkelstein, requested that the lights are off. So, Malka Finkelstein.
Hi, everyone. So a disclaimer, everything in this speech is for satire and comedy, so don't come and attack me for this. In the year 1991, the internet was made public. It was mostly used for searching the World Wide Web. You know, the usual stuff, like learning how not to pirate things onto your floppy disks, the useful stuff. Somewhere in the early 2000s, memes were more common and quickly became a widespread internet culture. As the YouTube king meme review, PewDiePie has said, memes are created by aliens to stop the progression of humans. This is mostly true at this point. I mean, memes are regurgitated over and over again until they slowly die a painful death. But nevertheless, you have your different types of memes, since we are a very cultured society. You have good memes, bad memes, dank memes, edgy memes, spicy memes, and I won't go further down the rabbit hole to talk about Vines or TikTok memes. I'm not that type of person. An example of a real spicy, tasty meme would be the holy Ugandan Juggus, and of course, our godly Ultra Instinct Shaggy. A bad meme would be the minion memes that every 30-something-year-old mom or 80-something-year-old grandparents, not ageist, post on their Facebook wall to seem relevant in these modern times. You also have the teacher who thinks using memes to teach us something is okay. It's really not. I mean, if I'm learning about calculus or chemistry, I don't want to see some meme about it when I'm trying to take a nap in the class. In fact, I don't want to see any meme about it. Lastly, we have our best memes, the dank memes. For example, the E-meme. I swear, from 40 years from now, the newest generation will look back at us and just think, what the F was wrong with these people? To be honest, even I don't know, which is saying something because I myself consider myself to be a meme lord since I am part of the 9-year-old army. Okay, but seriously, let's just jump into this, you guys. Memes have become so embedded into our lives, and surprisingly, it has done so good in the world, even though it's the opposite of what the aliens want. One thing we can all agree on is that memes are everywhere, and because they are everywhere, it spreads awareness about many things. I mean, as long as your meme gains traction around the internet, because if not, well, sucker. Anti-vaccination memes, or commonly, sorry, technical difficulties. Oh boy. Anti-vaccination memes, or commonly known as anti-vax, have been floating around the internet for the past few years. It was shown by PewDiePie's video, which was titled Bad News Meme Review Number 49. The memes he reviews all follow somewhat of a format, where it mocks children who are not vaccinated or mocks children who choose not to vaccinate their kids. While some of these memes may come off as offensive, it actually spreads awareness and further research. The memes bring light to the fact that statistically, there's a rise of instances of whooping cough, smallpox, measles, mumps, and more dangerous diseases due to the rise of unvaccinated children. While we don't know this is directly linked to these children, these memes shed light on a very real and present problem. So originally, my next paragraph was supposed to be about Article 13, but they decided to pass it before I gave the speech. I mean, talk about rude. So for the next minute or so, pretend Article 13 didn't pass, okay? Okay, so back on track. Can I tell you another very real and present problem that we have? The fact that there's basically an Ajit Pai 2.0 in the European Union. Article 13 was proposed in which every media platform should and would be monitored for any copyright infringements. But to everyone's horror, these memes fell under these laws, and if the article was passed, memes would be banned. I found about this from the most credible and trusted news source and YouTube's favorite news channel, Pew News, with Poppy Harlow and Gloria Borga as the hosts. When the article was first proposed, the internet went into an outrage. Well, I mean, a bigger outrage than usual. Memes are now run around, waving pitchforks at everyone to sign one of the many petitions to stop the passing of Article 13. In the directive of July 2018, the article was rejected and memes were safe yet again. But another directive was made in late 2018 in which everyone agreed, let's basically ban memes. So TLDR of all of this, there was an article passed in the EU that was a super strict copyright law, and memes fell under these laws. I mean, how could they do this? Europe's precious memes are now forever ruined. Oh, and you know, like, it limits freedoms of expression and harms independent creators. But who cares about that when the memes are in danger? Okay, but I need to be super serious right now and tell you guys the biggest problem right now. The fact that on YouTube, our king PewDiePie, at the moment of me editing this speech about the 100th time, is about 300,000 subs from losing the throne to an Indian music company called T-Series. This is not okay! The sub-gap has to be at least 1 million. The reason this is the utmost presence is that PewDiePie represents something. He represents that you can start small and grow larger than you ever thought. If T-Series beats PewDiePie, it will create a new age on YouTube, where channels run by corporate entities will start taking over. This is literally like a horror movie, people, where they take over and harvest our brains, like duh. So that's why it's so important that PewDiePie stays above T-Series, because he's the #1 independent creator who represents YouTube, even though they pretend he doesn't exist. So the most important message to take away from my speech is unsub for T-Series and subscribe to PewDiePie. Dab on them haters.
Thank you very much, Malka. I'm now pleased to call upon Leora Cronenberg.
Okay, picture this. A normal day in class, sitting there trying to pay attention to whatever the teacher is saying these days, but you end up deciding to fall asleep. Classic. Although you do say a little prayer beforehand, the teacher will go off topic and tell stories about their oh so exciting life, but that's a whole different speech topic. Either way, you're jostled awake when a new slide appears on the smartboard or a notification appears on your classroom titled, Unit of Given Subject, Group Project. Oh God, your entire day just got worse, especially if the teacher assigns the groups. Then your day gets a whole lot worse. But why should it be this way? Group projects are essential. They help you practice for days of teamwork, whether when planning for a big event, in a friend group, within a family, and especially on a workforce. But school group projects usually teach a student one of two things. Either they will learn how to super sneakily evade putting any effort in at all, ever, or they will learn how to do 4 people's jobs in under 24 hours. Tag yourself. Still, why does it always end in what will ultimately lead to conflict instead of completing its actual goal, being to teach students how to divide responsibilities equally and work as a team? So, you know how I mentioned before that people hate it when teachers choose their groups? Hey, teachers. On behalf of all your students who have been in a group at least once that has permanently fueled a hatred for their peers, I'm going to propose some options politely to you on how to make bad groups better. And no, I'm not going to say, just put us with our friends. I know, I get the logic behind it. You want us to work with different types of people who we may not interact with too much on a daily basis and connect to make something awesome. I respect that. That's cool. The people from different friend groups usually have different work ethics. That's also normal. But I noticed that you tend to just trust at least one student to take charge and then you leave them and you hope for the best. No, there are fires students alone cannot put out. You have to take charge because you are the manager in this work environment scenario. I was actually in the car while my dad was on a phone call and he was yelling at a lot of different people to pull it together for the big project tomorrow. He had to get everyone under control when they were in trouble because of a few lazy workers. Be like him. A teacher should not just give the students group projects and say go, but they have to periodically check in, make sure everyone is on board because everyone there needs to learn how to divide the work. I'm not saying to come and try and control every single detail, but do your students a solid and make sure that the entire group deserves the excellent mark, not just one person. Fellow peers, you thought for a bit that this is going to be a teachers are the worst speech, right? Listen up, losers, I'm just getting started. When we hear the word group work, we automatically assign ourselves into one of two mindsets. People who just can't be bothered. I feel you. You probably think you have better things to do. I know, going down the endless spiral of YouTube and taking 50 selfies and deleting 49 to find the perfect one for Instagram is really very productive. But I have shocking news. It can wait. Your project is probably due tomorrow. As much as it sucks, you're gonna have to take responsibility for something for at least one point in your life. Why not do that in a place built for the sole purpose of just that, learning? And don't even try and sell yourself short and say, I can't help because I'm not good enough. You can contribute so much to the group. You just need to be willing to put your ideas out there and set a couple minutes aside to make them real. People who feel the need to do it themselves. I also feel you. Your process of never relying on anyone for anything because of previous terrible experience is sadly valid. But maybe some of it is just all in your head. Like when you get together for the first time and try and split up the jobs. You end up giving yourself the biggest chunk of work, automatically. You take initiative by default. You are stressing yourself out by letting everyone depend on you. At those meetings, say, blank, you do this, blank, you do that, well, I do this. Don't say, who wants to do this thing, because that is a foolproof way to ensure that you will do all the things. As well, because you are basically going at it alone, you will tend to take charge and make only your suggestions heard. Make the project everyone's. If someone has a great suggestion, let them turn it into reality and do something for once. It doesn't have to always be you and solely your ideas. Balancing the work ethic is a key to good group. So what was the point of this speech term rant that simultaneously called everyone in this room out? The fact is, group projects are the worst, or have been the worst at one point for everyone here guaranteed. But they could be better. All we have to do is shift the mindset and balance the work ethic. Even think of the long-term consequences of leaving things the way they are. If we don't change, everyone in this world is going to hate each other even more. If we turn this messed up system around, everyone will eventually grow to tolerate each other, and that's a level of unity, right? We need more of that in our future. Still don't get it? Guess what I'm trying to say is, don't let the foolish mindset that comes with teamwork get to you and ditch a couple out of 26 people to put a play together in 2 weeks, because in real life, we're all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leora. I'm now pleased to call Gabe Aaron.
Thanks, Hannah. Before I start, I'd just like to thank my English teacher, Mr. Saltzman. Raise your hand over there in the back. Just thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I'd like to thank my family for coming, especially my grandparents all the way from Markham, Ontario. You've had a really long day. You're tired and you're hungry and you just want to go home, eat some dinner, get some work done, and hopefully you'll get an early night of sleep. You're looking for affection, someone to share your experiences with, someone that understands what you went through that day. But unfortunately, when you come home, like every night, everyone is cranky, everyone is mad at you, and everyone is really tired. It's one of those gloomy days. It's just raining outside. Everyone's just in a bad mood for some reason. There's one single living being in your house that isn't mad at you, that isn't cranky, and isn't in a bad mood. That single living being is your pet. Whether your pet wiggles their tail, licks their whiskers, barks at the door, or makes stupid oinky noises, all of these pets are awful. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I'll be telling you why the best pet to have is a fish. Merriam-Webster defines the word fish, or pet, as a domesticated animal kept for pleasure rather than utility. In the Torah, in the very first few chapters, we are introduced to Noah. Now we all know the story of Noah. It's very cute. He has all these animals, and he has this nice big ark, and this flood comes, you know. But if you think about it, Noah technically had many pets. In fact, we know that Noah had 2 of every type of animal on planet Earth, which means that he could have taken 2 of his worms to go fishing to get more of the best pets, which are fish. So now that we've cleared up the fact that fish are indeed pests, and it's historically proven that fish have been pets all the way back to biblical times, before Abraham was even born and before Judaism was even thought of, here are some other reasons to buy a fish as a pet. First of all, in general, having a pet is statistically proven to increase lifespan, increase happiness, and people that own pets statistically weigh less. In the United States, the pet fish population is approximately 58 million fish. To put that into perspective, that means that there's more pet fish in the United States than the whole Canadian population. In 2017, Americans spent nearly $7 billion on their pets. Most pets, such as cats and dogs, cost somewhere between $950 a year to about $1,500 a year, which is excluding healthcare. And we all know how much healthcare can cost for cats and dogs. The average American spends just over $60 a month to maintain the life of their aquatic companion, which is nothing compared to cats and dogs. Also, consider another situation. Fish don't require litter boxes because they literally live in a litter box. Fish don't require long walks like your dog, so that you can wait for your dog to evacuate his bowels all over your freshly mowed front lawn. You're cleaning out the space that they eat, sleep, defecate, and live life in. In other words, fish are super low maintenance. Another situation to consider. It's a really, really late night, and you went out with a bunch of your buddies, a bunch of your friends, you had a good time. You come back, and it's the early hours in the morning. Maybe it's 2 in the morning, maybe it's 3 in the morning. You pull up to the front of your house, you close the door to your car, you walk up to the front of your house, you take out your key, you put your key in the door, you start turning the key, and all of a sudden, you hear that stupid pet of yours making that barking, meowing, oinking, hissing, mooing, whatever stupid sound your pet makes, and wakes up every single person in your house. And once again, everyone's cranky, everyone's mad at you for whatever reason. No kidding, they're always mad at you, right? It's a big problem, right? The average person can scream about 80 decibels. A dog's bark is about 100 decibels, and a cat can meow up to 50 decibels. A fish cannot be heard by a human ear. Ever hear the noise that a fish makes when its owner comes home from a late night of fun? Exactly. Quiet and respectful creatures understand that it wouldn't be appropriate to make such loud noises at such early hours in the morning. Fish are great. They make great companions and are quiet, respectful creatures. Plus, if you ever got really angry at your fish, or really sick and tired of your fish for whatever reason, you can always go to the toilet, put it in the toilet, flush it down the toilet, and you wouldn't even get charged for animal cruelty. You can't flush your dog, you can't flush your cat, you can't flush your pig, you can't flush your snake, and you definitely cannot flush your cow down the toilet, can you? But in all seriousness, at the end of the day, fish really are the greatest pets to have, and they make great gifts and great memes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabe. I'm pleased to call up Yaakov Zucchini.
Fellow students, parents, esteemed teachers, and guests, good evening, bonsoir. On September 7th, 1969, the Canadian Parliament passed the Official Languages Act of Canada. This federal statute made English and French the official languages of the country. This meant that all federal institutions were to provide services in both English and French on demand. Today, I'm going to speak about just some of the many issues with living in a bilingual country, particularly regarding the federal government and English-speaking Canadians' virtual ineligibility to participate in the government on a federal level. Don't get me wrong, French is a beautiful language, spoken by over 8 million people across Canada. It is elegant and sophisticated, and it deserves to be spoken with pride in Quebec. Let's start off with the numbers. It is estimated that approximately 23% of Canadians are majority French-speaking, while approximately 77% are majority English-speaking. Approximately 86% of French-speaking Canadians reside in the only province in Canada that recognizes French as its official language, Quebec. As well, only 12% of Canadians are purely French-speaking. Only 17% of Canadians report being fluent in both English and French, also a large majority of which live in Quebec. And ever since the Official Languages Act of Canada was passed, over time it has become harder and harder for non-French English speakers to hold office in the highest ranks of government. In his Huffington Post article, Let Them Learn French, Canada's Bilingual Elite Hold All the Power, J.J. McCullough puts it best, quote, "To be Prime Minister of Canada, you have to know French. To be Governor General of Canada, you have to know French. To be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, you have to know French. To be head of the Bank of Canada, the Canadian Armed Forces, the CRTC, or the CBC, you have to know French." As well, in 2012, Parliament voted unanimously in favor of making it mandatory for the Auditor General, the Chief Electoral Officer, and a number of commissioners, including those for privacy, information, and ethics, to know French. This means that almost all political power in Canada is concentrated in just 17% of the population. If we were talking about some third world country, and you found out that less than 20% of its population held a monopoly on top government jobs, you wouldn't think it's much of a democracy. Yet here in Canada, we pride ourselves on a democratic electoral process, when in reality, unless you're part of that 17%, you don't really have any chance of making it too far. To be clear, I'm not saying that French should be abolished in Canada. In Quebec, a province with a large number of French speakers, it is totally fine on a provincial level to have a political system in which it is required to speak French. However, it's a different story in the federal government. It's very tough to fathom the fact that all these federal jobs cannot be held by English-speaking Canadians, and rather must be held by French speakers, just to cater to the 12% of Canadians who only speak French. Now, I'm sure that there are many other Canadians out there who would argue that we should just learn both languages. But if the goal is to achieve effective communication, mathematically, it would make much more sense for 12% of the population to learn English than for 77% to learn French. It is also commonly underrated how hard it is for people to learn a second language, especially one that you don't use every day. It would be one thing to learn French in France, a country where you would use this language in your everyday life, but it's another thing to learn it in England, a place in which that language would not be used day to day. The same exact principle can be applied to Quebec, where perhaps French would be more convenient in some ways, as opposed to Ontario, in which the language would not be used nearly as much. And to top it off, quelle surprise, this system is not working. I myself, as well as many of my peers, went through up to 9 years of French classes, and I would be willing to bet that if I ask every single one of them in this room whether or not they can carry on a conversation in French, most of them would say something along the lines of non. This means that if I, or most of you here in this room, decided that you wanted to pursue a career in the federal government, chances are you wouldn't make it. We are Canadian. We speak the language that 88% of Canadians speak. But due to the fact that we do not know how to speak French, we are practically disqualified from running for any sort of federal office. It is evident that Canada's so-called bilingualism is belied by the statistics. The fact is, although the Official Language Act states that these two languages are equal, it is simply not true. Canadians need to come together and understand that if we all want effective communication and a proper democracy where anyone and everyone could participate in the federal government, it is vital to move on to one single official language. Either that, or we should all move to Quebec and give our future children the opportunities they deserve. Thank you. Merci à bonne nuit.
Thank you very much, Yaakov. I'm pleased to call up Sarah Schemmel.
Generally speaking, the class valedictorian writes a graduation thank you speech that reflects the sentiments of the entire grade. Although I leave the responsibility of being valedictorian to someone else, I would also like the opportunity to thank those who have guided us for so long. Through the ups and downs, the highs and lows, the thick and thin, from grade 9 to grade 12, I present those who have guaranteed we might actually make it to graduation. For ensuring that my essays always sound articulate, eloquent, fluent, effective, persuasive, expressive, comprehensible, intelligible, and silver-tongued, I would like to thank thesaurus.com. I would also like to show my heartfelt appreciation for Schmoop and SparkNotes. On behalf of a good friend of mine, thank you for being the reason she has never read a single book in her entire high school career. You know who you are. Not that I would know from personal experience, but if you ever need to read 248 pages of Lord of the Flies in one night, I can direct you to some excellent resources. I would now like to give a round of applause to Grammarly for making my writing considerably worse and adding 26 unnecessary commas to each and every sentence. Your spelling, comma, is not, comma, that great, semicolon, either, period. Last, but most definitely not least, I would like to introduce this next one with a story. A couple weeks ago, my father knocked on my door late one night, curious to know who I had been on FaceTime with for over 4 hours. In reality, I was not FaceTiming anyone. I introduced my father to none other than Saul Kahn of Khan Academy. Saul, from phosphofructokinase to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase, I could not have done it without you. You have served as a guiding light through my darkest hours, and your efforts do not go unnoticed. If there was a Nobel Peace Prize for saving grades, it's safe to say you would be the undisputed winner. From the bottom of my heart, I, along with every student across North America, thank you. Sometimes we tend to overlook the seemingly small or insignificant things that others do for us, but it's so important to take a step back and understand that nothing is insignificant. Every person deserves adequate recognition for his or her service, no matter how unimportant it may seem. High school is a turbulent, overwhelming time in every student's life. But those shining stars, those beacons of hope mentioned, have provided indispensable support and guidance to our grade. They inspire us daily with the message that we will succeed. I mean, possibly. To be honest, with 2 months till graduation, it could really go either way.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm pleased to call up Hadassah Number.
Stupid. An adjective to best describe the average person. Urban Dictionary. Many people are told throughout their lives, especially from their Jewish moms, that they are smart and capable. Personally, my mom loves to tell me that I'm smart, but I'm not sure why. Maybe she's hoping that she passed what she believes to be good genetics onto her favorite child. However, being accustomed to always being called smart by my parents, I was taken aback by an experience I had last year. I told someone, "You don't know how it feels to be stupid." And they responded, "You don't know how it feels to be smart." Finally, someone admitted to calling me stupid. I was overjoyed, especially after discovering through my extensive research that having a high IQ is not as glorifying as society likes to believe. For starters, people that have a high IQ have certain pressures and expectations from a young age that stupid people do not have to worry about. Imagine a life where from a young age you have done well in school and you grow up knowing that you are smart. It sounds awful. There is then pressure to get good grades, to get into university, just to work in a respected field. The reason that so many people dye their hair blonde is because they want to lower people's expectations of them. Only 5% of people are naturally blonde, while according to Salon's reports, the majority request for hair color is blonde at 39%. If people presume that you are smart or capable of high intellectual achievement, then you can't sit back on your couch because you might be the one to discover the cure for cancer. But thank God, Mrs. Monk told me I could pass as a natural blonde. Researchers are also discovering that graduate schools and graduate programs have concerning levels of mental health issues among their students. A study published in the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, found that more than 25% of graduate students are depressed, and more than 10% have considered suicide. In addition, Harvard's suicide attempt rates are double the normal rates among the general public. In my opinion, it is always better to marry a doctor instead of becoming a doctor and suffering through those terrible years of medical school. And I'm not the only one. When reflecting on the post-secondary day at Olpana, many students agreed that it would be more beneficial if we heard from alumni who successfully married rich, instead of hearing from those who suffered through post-secondary education. The majority of alumni who I spoke to admitted that they were not happy compared to their friends and family who were lucky enough to find rich husbands. Harvard agrees, and one of their business reviews says that the happy people are not the smart people, despite what society might think. As we can see, there are so many benefits to being stupid. When an intellectual accomplishes something, it's expected. But when a stupid person accomplishes anything, everyone is amazed and surprised. How can you be sad when people are always amazed by everything that you do? this naturally leads to great mental health and overall happiness. I hope that the next time you think of calling someone smart, think twice and let them know how stupid they really are.
Thank you very much, Hadassah. I'm pleased to call Moshe Ben Zion.
Is it good? It's good? All right, fine. I really hate choosing speech topics. You know, I never really understood the idea of speaking of a speech topic, and I've been here for almost 4 years. The idea of speaking to a group of people about something completely random isn't really any different than what we as Orchaim students do every day. Most of us, when we have spares or lunch breaks, spend our time either talking about food, teachers, food, why glue doesn't stick to the inside of the bottle, and more food, right? But I think the worst part about writing a speech, and I'm sure a lot of you already know this, is to sit down and think of a good topic. Now, do you know how annoying that is? Well, clearly you do because you're all here. But sitting down for a few hours to brainstorm a topic only to come up with no ideas and resume thinking about food is kind of annoying. For example, my first idea for this speech was to be the 37th person, in counting, to talk about why Sunday school needs to finally be abolished. Sounds good, right? But can you guess what I did after thinking about the topic? That's right, got sidetracked and ordered some Uber Eats. That's why, as you may have already guessed from my rant, I will be talking about the annoying process of writing a speech. To start this off, I will admit one good thing about this project. Firstly, I really got nothing. Sorry, Mr. Parker. Okay then, here we go. The first step to writing a speech topic is to think of a topic that can make the audience laugh a bit. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already know this through watching some of Orchaim's past public speaking, but no offense to anyone in the room, some of the topics can be a little bit dull and gloomy. Most of the time, the jokes don't seem to make the audience laugh unless it's to fill in the awkward void where humor should be. See? Okay, now that you've wasted 3 days thinking of a funny topic and you're still thinking about food, it's time to plot out how you're going to go about the delivery. Wrong. Never do work the first week it's assigned. You always want to wait till the last few days before the assignment's due date. This will take you out of the corporeal dimension of negative chakra energy to the highest level in all dimensions of spiritual energy, giving you the true knowledge of Mr. Parker himself. All right, now that you have successfully completed this step, it is time for you to start typing the speech. Again, wrong. Never start working before it's due. You always want to wait till the last day so your head can produce the best info. This is a crucial step in producing the best content to entertain and captivate your audience. Now, surely, as all of you know, once you have your glorious piece of work with you on the computer, you need to pinpoint when and where to fit in the jokes. This is where you need to set down the bubka and really get your head into the game. After that, you're done. You have finally reached your goal. You have successfully created a mediocre paper with minimal jokes, and you still can't stop thinking about your rumbling teenage tummy. Now, do you see how annoying this is? It really does take a lot out of a person to sit down and think of something creative to say. But I do have to admit, there are some positives about writing a speech. As this is graded based on how well you present it, it doesn't matter how you type it, and you don't need to submit your paper onto Google Classroom. Meaning, you can write whatever you want and not expect a mark back based on your spelling and words of choice. Do you know how amazing that is? Just think about all the things you can say. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a text message. Really, Mr. Parker? A submission date for this? Due today? Oh, come on, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moshe. Last but not least, I'm pleased to call Ben Namirov.
I know I'm last, but hopefully it's still going to be good. Before I really get into the speech, I want to ask you all one question. If you had the time to do anything at all, what would you do? If you had no time restrictions and you could spend your time on anything, what would you do with it? See, time's an interesting thing. I mean, for one, it's not really even a thing. It's an infinite fourth-dimensional plane of existence containing all past, present, and future events. And yeah, I know, trust me, I get it. That kind of sounds like just a bunch of words to a lot of you. But the point is, time is important. Time is the universal one-way currency. You can spend it on anyone or anything, but once you spend it, you can never truly get it back. Time is important. With it, you can do whatever you want, but without it, you can accomplish literally nothing. And if you don't get what I'm saying by now, if you don't get the point of this, the point is time is important, but only if you make it important. If you think about time in the hands of the beholder, it runs similarly to the expression, you are what you eat. Every second you study calculus, every minute you watch a YouTube video, that adds one more piece of the puzzle that is you. So when you actually consider how we treat our time, I mean, it's really quite sad. How we constantly go on shopping sprees with its invaluable currency. How we go day in and day out, often waking up just to count the seconds until we can fall back asleep. We fill our times and our schedule full of nonsensical videos and meaningless social platforms looking for ways just to pass the time. I mean, can we appreciate that for a second? We've literally coined the sayings pass time and kill times, almost like we want it to pass without caring about how it passes and how we spend it, almost like we're trying to get rid of it. We say that there's always tomorrow, but why don't we appreciate the today? Why are we so lax, so carefree about this wealth? We say the clock's ticking, you're not getting any younger, you only live once, to warn ourselves about this. And yet, please, ask yourself these questions. Are you happy about how you spent your time for the last day? Or the last week? I mean, I hope so, because if not, I'm sorry to tell you this, but there are no refunds. We live for the weekend when we have the whole week. We complain about our lives, while we say that they're bleak, so we go on our phones and stay under our sheets. Yeah, and I get it. Sometimes life can be difficult, but stay positive, be strong, don't be weak. With having such a limit on our time, how we best spend it is what we should seek. It's a one-time payment, a single wage. We should consider it a treat. Don't sit around. Let's go. Get up. Get out of your seat. How you spend your time makes you who you are. Like I said before, you are what you eat. So please, think about what you do every day. Think about how you spend your time. And think about these two questions. If you had the time to do anything, anything at all, what would you do? If you had no restrictions on how you spend your time, what would you do with it? Thank you. Good night.
Hey, thank you so much, Ben. And a thank you to all of our finalists, our 11 and 12. Hey, we're going to let our judges deliberate. In the meantime, we have our People's Choice open for the 11 and 12 finalists who have the number up here. We're going to give them about 10 minutes or so. We're going to see if they can be quick, and then we'll have the results for you. Thank you all very much.
like cliche and like really.
Yours are weird. Sorry, yours are really good. I feel that. It was really good. I thought Mordechai Wolfson's name was so cute.
Which one?
Tiny.
Oh.
It was like a bit of a jump. Like it would have been like
I'm a science person. He could have made it really scientific. Mirror neurons, dopamine, like.
yeah. I don't know what kind of person I am. I'm science and philosophy and English, which means I'm nothing and everything. I realized
Jack of all trades.
I realized I'm not, but it's like bad thing. How am I supposed to choose what I want to do?
No, there was this thing that was like, Jack of all trades, master of none is actually a really good thing. Because if you can do something part way, that's still really important. Because there's other people who are specialists in their field, but if you can do something halfway, that's incredible.
Great, I get 50s and everything. I realized I'm not a math thing, so I'm not a science brain.
I'm not a math brain, but I am a science brain. I might be a math brain. I'm just a giving up brain.
No, you're not.
No.
No, you're not. You're not a giving up brain.
I'm totally
You are not a giving up brain. You had 15 years of education with me. You are not a giving
Sarah,
up brain.
that was so good. I loved it.
I would get
arrested for truancy if I didn't go to school. Yeah.
I'm thirsty confidence.
Oh, okay. Great. Hi, Al.
What are they announcing?
You're amazing. What?
I feel like the jokes that I laugh. Hello. No, this is going to be a speech. I've been accepted by the young ones. I am officially loved. I was loved by the young ones. This is like my speech. I'm very happy now. Thank you. Go for it.
So perhaps as a pointed policies, maybe send them to
I really hope I got those. I don't know why. I want to learn people's choice. People's choice. People's choice. You should
topic that was funny, you know what I mean? Like things that play well in the conversation. Anyhow, it just came to mind and I was like,
like the Peter Pan tea.
But I think it's okay, because I think it was like...
Everyone's like, oh, that meme. Obviously, the Peter Pan meme became outdated this morning when some got like 300,000 difference. I'm like, it was more exciting when it was 1,000 difference. So we'll be okay.
Okay. Alright, anyway, so it just came to mind. I'm sure you already thought of it many times over.
Not enough to institute.
No, I mean during the, maybe you, yeah, okay. Sorry, yeah, I will allow you to teach her. Ladies? What did I think? I don't know, you should have called in for your assistant. What did you think? Were you impressed? Yeah? Me too. That's okay. Well, that's the risk you run, right? When you want to use the technology.
Honestly, yeah.
How did it feel?
Terrifying. I still have a stress headache. How to get like all sorts of
How about for you? Very calm, cool, and collected. Although I think you needed more of your classmates here because they really were the ones
They're all
who loved
supporting
it.
us. They're all supporting us.
Oh, online.
Yeah, I have school jobs.
No, not your first time?
Yep, it's your first time.
Your first time, not your first time.
Yeah.
Good for you for putting in your time and we'll see what happens. Okay, you're very welcome. It also has caused me to not rethink using group projects, but rethink how to go about them. Well, like I was explaining to you after you did the speech, it's more like painting a work of art than painting all of the house. If that makes sense. Right? Like, so there really is a delicate balance. Sometimes you're balancing personalities, sometimes you're balancing skills. I don't know. What do you mean?
I told you to sit down. This is Thompson. He's laughing so hard. No! They were
told him, and he was like, great.
Mr. T must have loved it.
You know, I think the message was heard by your parents and everything.
Hadassah. You're gonna win.
You should win.
Okay, but yours was like on the other in another realm.
Like the post-secondary thing, that was boring. That wasn't even on.
But you like delivered it. Like
I told you about having really funny people to help you. See?
Aw, thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Marie. Still talking to you.
I got the cookie that was this. This is the cookie that I just go.
However, Paul wasn't there, so you're back to
Yeah.
I mean, we were real that wasn't his sister.
I mean, like, what if I just kind of yeah.
I'm not going to take her as a class to start off my Jewish history class with me. I will take a test.
No, that's not allowed. Not allowed. Subscribe to Tippy Price. Yeah. Down in the later. Yeah, it's cool, right? I do it down. I add it down on the paper. Thank you. I feel like the jokes fell flat.
I laughed. It was great.
As long as, you know, someone's as long as the message gets mentioned, the message is
What?
I don't like you anymore.
Stop it. Should we join that conversation? Looks interesting.
You know that the camera can see you, right, Mom?
You want to go back to Mom now?
What's the camera? There's a light on your camera.
What? Thank you. It's not like
I don't know. It's not worth the risk.
But you know what? At least for you to like draw. I know. And
B so I can find my face.
right.
Why did you do that?
Crazy.
It's very No, wait outside. No, I'm coming with you. It's fine.
Adina?
Him. I'll have to go and look at the live streaming.
Moshe, your mother can explain to you what happened. She saved the day. Just so you know, your mom saved the day.
the day of judgment. Mom, yes. Leora is. No, go into the back. No. Mom, it's the judge's seat. Go back. No, you're not. Go sit back down now.
What do we want?
Airplane noises.
When do we want them?
Meow. Mom, I love you guys.
I don't know.
Okay, Mom, this is Fega, and that's Leora. No, Fega Leora. This is my mom.
How are you?
That's Rivka, you know her, right? And that's Yal. That's Yal Grin.
Wait,
This is my
Sarah
mom.
typing.
She's in grade 9. She's
Your
freshman.
daughter's amazing. She
Love
greeted me, the first time I met her, she greeted me with the question, what's your favorite vegetable?
I'm not
because
good
she
with
made me laugh. Okay,
I'm not good with conversation. I get really nervous.
No, see, here's the thing. I get really nervous in social situations, and obviously she saw that, and she wanted...
Sorry.
What's red and bad for your teeth?
What?
A brick.
Thank you for your patience. We'd like to ask everyone to take their seats just for a couple more minutes. If you could please take your seats. Finalists too, we want to try to get some pictures of all of you. We're wrapping up here. We thank you for your patience. So many wonderful speeches. Wasn't easy. I would like to ask Mrs. Pertman to begin the explanation for how they have decided who they have chosen.
Hi everyone, it's been a great evening. We are beyond impressed with all of you finalists. Something that Mrs. Fixler didn't mention is that I actually used to work as a speechwriter, and you all have a bright future ahead of you. So really fantastic job. We'd now like to present our finalists with a special award. So we're going to be calling you up. We're going to start with Tippy Price. Thank you. Yeah. That's it. Hannah Halberstadt. Jacob Brott. Boaz Katzman. Adina Strauss. Liebe Woodrow. Eliezer Lando. Mordechai Wolfson. Malka Finkelstein. Gabe Aaron. Sarah Schemmel. And Hadassah Number. We are now going to announce the 2 People's Choice Awards. So the first award goes to Tippy Price. And the second People's Choice Award goes to Hadassah Number. We are now going to announce our 3rd place winner. Ben Namirov. Oh. Pause for a moment. We would like to announce one of our other finalists, Moshe Ben Zion. Thank you. In second place, we have Leora Cronenberg, which means that our first place winner was Yaakov Zucchini. Fantastic job. Thank you everyone for coming. Have an amazing night.